So the title of the exhibition is Between Rot and Genesis. Basically, what it's looking at in terms of the binary construction of the title itself is looking at historical legacy issues in terms of colonialism versus GDP growth and what's currently happening in key countries like Angola and Nigeria. So looking at the tension between those, between past exploitation and problems and projection as to what growth and what the future might look like. Looking at a number of contexts and looking at ways of trying to manifest ideas around progress and around articulating legacy issues like I've talked about. Those kinds of things generate their own ideas. Also reading Newsweek, reading the newspaper, researching and physically going to these places. My work tries to manifest metaphors about what is happening and what has happened. So what does progress look like and what does progress cost in humanitarian, social, political, economic senses?
It's that sort of state that we find ourselves in South Africa right now, between thinking, is the country degenerating or is it regenerating? Or are we at the beginning of our democracy or the end of our democracy? And that's a tension that I think is found throughout kind of post-colonial countries, not only in Africa but around the world. But you particularly see it at the moment in South Africa. One of the things I find amazing about his work is the way he chooses each object very carefully, and then he brings them together in unlikely or surprising combinations.
There's often a binary construction of taking something that exists, adding something else to it, and out of that becomes a third space. The more successful works are ones that kind of blur that binary construction, or that not only create a third space, but create a fourth and a fifth space, and transcend their kind of their grafting and their construction.
I mean, one of the things I find interesting about Michael's work is that they are objects existing in space in the present. They do have narrative built into them, and I mean, what's nice about this piece, for example, is that you can read it from left to right, or you can read it from right to left. These are ostrich bones sticking out of the concrete. And we don't know if nature's been kind of sucked into progress and kind of obliterated by it, or if progress is kind of degenerating back into a state of nature, and that this aspiration to kind of industrialize Africa has failed, and as everything's returning to bush. So, and I love the sort of the tension in this work from left to right and right to left, because you're somewhere in the middle, and the concrete pillar is kind of sagging with the burden of this tension. You know, out of the cement packets, Michael's made a couple of sails, but they're not functional sails. They're kind of useless sails. You know, the mast is incredibly heavy. They're made out of paper, which is a perishable material. But they're all about an aspiration to a journey, and they also talk about migrant people, you know, refugees crossing the Mediterranean, trying to get to Europe, which is what happens in the film Sea of Ashes. So yeah, often it's narratives that have failed, ruined quests that people want to go on, but can't quite manage to get there.
So a lot of the work, I think, in this exhibition is about being placed in this context we have no control over, but getting agency back. There's no final meaning, there's no final truth. You can't transcend this and say, well, this is democracy, this is the future, this is the truth of who we are, this is our identity, this is what's right, this is what's wrong. These are people that should have, these are the people that should not have. Because everyone's got a claim, and everyone's invested. And so Michael's show, for me, is very empowering, because it's about how we can occupy this space, acknowledge that it's kind of really messed up, and we're kind of powerless. But there's humor, there's irony, there's the capacity to bring things together and make meaning and create new realities. And that's quite empowering, and that's quite liberating.